morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at a deck that has got a bunch of people excited. You see, Kyle Pukasukovic is very well known for being one of the very best players in the world, up until he left the competitive Pokemon scene to go and join the Pokemon Company International. And at the moment, the lovely folks over at Limitless TCG are running an online tournament. Well, these two come together as Puka he tweeted out a deck saying, hey, this is what I would play if I was able to play in the Limitless qualifier this weekend. He's in an awkward time zone. And since he posted this list, I have seen so many people going, right, well, I'm just going to play this then. Is it any good? Let's have a look, shall we? Now, the main Pokemon we're actually looking at here is Lucario and Melmetal. And Lucario and Melmetal is here because he's a big boy. It is a very difficult to KO Pokemon. Yes, it gives up free prizes, that's not ideal, but what we have here is a nice big bulky Pokemon that is quite hard to KO. And the attacks are fine, it's not bad. What we see is 260 HP, which is low for a tag team. 2 energy, 50 damage, search for a metal energy and attach it to this Pokemon. And then 4 energy, 150. I do like how you attack for 2 energy, search your deck and attach, and then the next turn, you attach that 4th energy and you're off. The turn after you use Steel Fist, you should be able to use Heavy Impact. So that's quite nice. But we've also got the GX attack. 1 colourless energy for the remainder of this game. Your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. And even though we usually like to split the Pokemon and the trainers up, I've got to mention at this stage that this is where we're using Metal Frying Pan. You see, Metal Frying Pan is an excellent card. It's a Pokemon tool, reduces damage done by 30 and takes away your weakness. So okay, admittedly, you've got a slightly low HP. But I'll tell you what, when you're taking 60 less damage from attacks, and you've got no weakness, that does help to mitigate things quite a bit. Now, the other main Pokemon we see here is a free to Omastar line. I know, right? Technically, it's a 0 free to Omastar line. We'll get there in a moment. But Omastar comes in as a rather lovely Pokemon. And what it does, if you've got fewer Pokemon in play than your opponent, they are item locked. They can't play any item cards from their hand. Now, it's got to be fewer, not the same number as or fewer, but still, you can item lock your opponent, and that's kind of lovely. Because Lucario and Melmetal on its own isn't really good enough. It's just not. Lucario and Melmetal with Zacian has proven to be a good deck, though the very much second best way to play Zacian generally. But once you bring in a bit of item lock, all of a sudden it becomes a much, much better deck because your opponent is really, really limited in what they can do. Now, the last Pokemon we play here is Blacephalon, which might seem like a weird inclusion, and in a way it kind of is. Because it doesn't really fit with what you're doing. The deck generally is playing Lucario and Melmetal, decent attacks, bit of tanking, and Omastar, so that you've got a big, bulky, tanking Pokemon in the active while you're doing decent damage, but your opponent is item locked, giving you the time you need to win with Lucario and Melmetal. Where does Blacephalon GX come in? Big attack. It comes in with a really nice big attack, whereby you lost zone as much energy as you like attached to your Pokemon, and do 50 damage for each one that you've lost zoned. Oh. Wait a second, why are we playing Fire Energy here? Well, again, I've got to ruin the surprise and talk about trainers earlier than I usually would. We're playing Welder. You see, Lucario and Melmetal's first attack is 2 colourless energy, which means you can Welder, get 2 energy on, and you're off. Oh, yeah, that's quite nice. Not to mention, Heavy Impact is 2 colourless, 2 metal, so if you can Welder in Metal Energy now, you can Metal Energy next turn. Or if you Metal Energy and use Full Metal Wall, which will often be your turn 1 option, you can then Welder and then attach metal for your turn and bypass Steel Fist altogether. Honestly, I think that's what you want to do most of the time here. Metal Energy and Full Metal Wall turn 1, second Metal, Welder for 2 fire turn 2, and then you're hitting 150 consistently from turn 2. So now you're playing a deck of a bunch of fire energy, you've got a bunch of fire energy on the board, and Blacephalon can come in for one big attack. No, you're not going to be able to do this often. You're playing 8 fire energy. You lost zone it when you attack with Blacephalon. You're gonna run out of energy. But in the short term, when you really need one big attack, this has got your back. You can buy time with a first attack, which confuses and burns. Could buy you a turn or two. And you do have a GX attack that just discards one of your prizes. You got one fewer left to take. And attaches it if it's an energy card, but you really want to be using Lucario and Melmetal's GX attack here, so maybe not, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in terms of the trainer line here, it is a Greens line. We play 4 copies of Greens Exploration. It is a Greens Exploration kind of deck. That is your main supporter. It gets you any of your trainer cards that you need. It's pretty gosh darned important. And it does search for trainer cards, so it can also search for stadiums. And this is where we need to mention Pokemon Research Lab. Pokemon Research Lab is incredibly important to this deck. It allows you to search for a card that evolves from Mysterious Fossil, 2 of them in fact, and then pop it straight onto your bench. And that helps you get your Omastar into play. It gets 2 Omanyte from your deck onto your bench. And you need to be careful here and you need to read the board. You don't want to go grabbing 2 Omastar if you only need 1. Because the more Pokemon you've got in play, the more likely it is you're not going to get the item lock going. But you don't want to search for 1 and then your opponent KOs it and then you whiff the item lock next turn. You have been warned. But it means you don't have to play Mysterious Fossil and it increases your consistency. And because you're searching it out with Greens Exploration, you've now got 4 greens, which can get you the turn 1 lab, and you've got 4 lab, which get you the turn 1 lab. Do remember that lab ends your turn. So certainly if you're going first, this is, well, you can't attack. This is an awesome play. Although do remember if you go first, you can't use greens to search it out. So fingers crossed. Elsewhere in terms of supporters, we've got 3 copies of Marnie. Marnie works here as a little bit of disruption. You and your opponent shuffle your hands, put them at the bottom of your respective decks. You get 5 cards, your opponent gets 4. I've seen a bunch of people complaining this weekend that they've lost to a Marnie. Well, yeah. If you're item locking your opponent and you're very difficult to KO, surely putting your opponent down to a low hand size as well is only going to help. Professor's Research, you play 2 of these, and it's just discard your hand, draw 7. It's the fastest, most aggressive draw card we've got. Really is as simple as that. It's going to help you get set up. We like it. 3 copies of Welder we've already mentioned to accelerate fire energy. There you do also draw 3 cards. And in terms of tag team supporters, we play ourselves 2 copies of Mallow and Lana. It's a switch that also heals 120 damage, bearing in mind you're a tanky deck that wants to try and not be KO'd. And then a copy of Cynthia and Caitlin. Gets a supporter back while drawing 3 cards. It turns up in most decks. And because we're playing a bunch of tag team Pokemon and a bunch of tag team supporters, we're playing a copy of Tag Call. Yes, we'd rather play 4 of these, but you know what? We don't have room in the deck. Plus, you can search it out with Greens Exploration, so one of these you're not going to draw into all that often, but one of these as a Greens Exploration option is a pretty good option. In terms of Pokemon Search, we don't have a huge amount here. We've got 1 copy of Pokemon Communication. Searches a Pokemon you do want from your deck at a cost of a Pokemon you don't want from your hand. And we've got 1 copy of Evolution Incense, which searches out an evolved Pokemon. Why so little in terms of Pokemon Search? Well, we've got 1 Communication, 1 Tag Call, 1 Evolution Incense, But we've also got 4 Pokemon Research Lab and Green's Exploration, so you basically use Greens to grab the card you need to go and grab the Pokemon you're looking for right now. Bearing in mind, you're not going to want many Pokemon. The ideal situation here, if your opponent isn't able to get KOs, is 1 Omastar, 1 Lucario and Melmetal. But that does depend on your opponent's setup. Couple copies of Switch will get your Pokemon out the active. Couple copies of Reset Stamp, I mean it's played in every deck. Puts your opponent down to a hand equal to their remaining prizes. Particularly good here because item lock and hard to KO means your opponent needs more stuff than they usually would, so anytime you can reduce their hand size is good. 2 Reset Stamp and free Marnie is really going to help you along those lines. 1 copy of Great Potion for a little bit of extra healing. Again, all these one-offs can be searched for Green's Exploration. 1 copy of Great Catcher for a little bit of gusting. We're not playing much gusting in this deck, but it's not the end of the world, because it really is a case of you've got a hard to KO Pokemon, your opponent's item locked, and then you just attack with Lucario and Melmetal. It means you're not often going to be worrying about what's on their bench, but there will be the odd time you're terrified. Oh look, here we go, Great Catcher, here we go. Couple copies of Energy Spinner searches out your basic energy. You are playing Metal and Fire here, so it's nice to have the option. Plus, if you go second, you can search out free energy, and that's enough for a manual attachment with your Metal and a welder for 2 fire. 1 copy of Energy Retrieval to make sure you've got that energy back if it gets KO'd, and 3 copies of Acrobike just to make sure you've got that bit of extra consistency. You look at the top 2 cards of your deck. 1 in your hand, discard the other. Let's do this. Just helps you draw what you need a bit more easily. This has been getting a lot of hype since Puka posted the deck list. I'm not entirely convinced it's going to be the best deck ever, but I am convinced that item locking your opponent while giving him a very difficult to KO Pokemon could lead you to an absolute winner. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.